I'm Kathy. I'm from TIC SA here as Partnerships Manager. We've got Emily joining us in communications and Jess as well. Put your hand up, Jess, great, in membership. So welcome to everybody today and joining us for another social distancing happy hour. I hope a few of you got a beverage in hand as we knock off this Friday afternoon. Good work, guys. Love it. Let's just do a quick whip around. If everybody could introduce themselves and their business and location, and then I will do a bit of housekeeping and flick to Alan. So, Derek, whilst we've had a great introduction already, for the members who weren't connected, just give us a bit of an intro to yourself and where you're located.
Well, we're located in Wallaroo. We're a new business that opened 3 months ago, or December the 7th. But a bit of a wild ride for our first 3 months, 4 months. So we're a microbrewery, distillery, and restaurant. I'm currently sitting in the basement area of our building. In our distillery, we can see Ginger's there behind me. That's where we make our gin. So I've got my laptop sitting up to the bar. We run a accommodation business in Wallaroo, which is CU at Wallaroo. We've got 2 properties here, basically old warehouses that have been converted to group accommodation. One sleeps up to 70 people and the other sleeps up to 30 people, or combined up to 100. And we do school camps or retreats and stuff like that. At the moment, we're not doing much in anything. So. But
fabulous. Thanks, Derek. I'll move on to Nichelle.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, my internet isn't quite strong enough to have the camera and the audio at once. But yeah, just to explain a little bit about me, I'm based in the Flinders Ranges. We have a station stay experience and just looking at how we can be value adding to the business during these tough times.
Fabulous. Thank you. And Nichelle, can you hear me, Nichelle? Yes. Hello.
Yeah, I can. Hello. How are you? Good. So I'm from the Public Inaminka Hotel. So we've got 31 rooms. We can fill those. Our dining room sits up to 100 people, which we have filled on numerous times. And yeah, at this stage, like everybody else, we've got nobody. So yeah.
Fabulous. Thanks for connecting. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, sorry, hello, unmute. Obviously I'm Lisa, hello. I am a TICSA board member, but also have just started with Yalumba. Lucky for me, I started the week we pretty much closed Cellar doors. So I've also got Sally, my colleague, joining in as well because she's more familiar, I guess, with the what we're going to talk about today, but it's just hopefully a good way to just reconnect. Yeah, so up in the Barossa.
Fabulous. And hi to you too, Sally. Thanks for joining us today. Adam, how you going, Adam?
Hi, how you going? Yeah, doing really well. My name's Adam Mizzy. I'm signing in on behalf of the Grill Academy team at Weber. So we're about to start a new business. We're actually it's right in the throes of getting everything set up to go and obviously everything unfolded. So we're still working to launch, but we're going to be doing barbecue experiences above our head office at Rose Park in Adelaide. We've got a venue that can cater up to 200 people standing, and it's a purpose-built barbecue entertainment venue. So.
Oh, fabulous. That sounds
getting very excited and lots of practice going on at the moment at home in isolation. But yeah, our job's going to be to create some backyard heroes once we come off the back of this.
Oh, that's great. That sounds, yeah, I'll watch this space closely.
Yeah, and I'm joined by Jacinda, who's also on this call. I think it says connecting to audio. I'm not sure whether she can chime in here.
Okay.
But
Hi, Jacinta. We can't see you, but we'll say g'day. Emily, how you going?
Hi, good, thanks.
That's good.
Well, I'm a council employee, so a little bit different situation. I'm an economic development officer. and we have the Campbelltown Food Trail.
Fabulous.
So I'm kind of trying to think about how we can support our food and beverage businesses, yeah, in the council area.
Oh, fabulous. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Hi, Vicky.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm from Arkarora in the Northern Flinders Ranges, so a couple of hours north of Michelle, and quite a long way south of Michelle. So hi, guys. I suppose like everyone else, well, we're severely affected. It's quite different. We've been closed for a bit over a month now. So it's just sort of a few of us around here doing some maintenance and some conservation work. So we're just sort of working on sort of getting ourselves as ready, both maintenance-wise and also publicity-wise, for when we're allowed to have people back again. I suppose the one thing that we're looking at the moment, and we're sort of almost there, is running some online astronomy tools. So that's hopefully coming up in the next 2 days, if we can overcome our technical issues.
Fabulous. Thank you. And hello to Joel. I don't know if Joel's got the ability to unmute us himself or not, but he's from the Spirit, just bear with me 2 minutes, Joel. Spirit Australia Cruises, Joel's joining us. Oh, he's just popped a message on, so you can see the group chat there. Joel's the marketing manager at Spirit of the Coorong, Cruise the Coorong, the Big Duck Tours, and Spirit Australia Cruises. They have recently started serving alcohol on their vessels. So thank you, everybody. Great to do a big whip around. Just a bit of housekeeping. If we could ask everybody to press mute and table their questions through the chat function, like Joel has used for his introduction, that would be fabulous. I am so pleased to introduce today Ben Allen from Wallmans Lawyers. Many of you might already recognise Ben as a familiar face with TIC-SA over the years. He's engaged with many of our events. Wallmans Lawyer are a wonderful partner to us at TIC-SA and have been a long time supporter of the tourism industry. Ben brings to us today his extensive experience in hospitality to further discuss cellar doors, food, liquor, trading amidst the restrictions faced in the current situation. So I'll flick it over to yourself, Ben. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kathy, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today, and for tuning in at 4 o'clock on a Friday, which is always a dangerous time. But anyway, we'll battle on. Kathy and I did speak before today, and we agreed that given the topic, subject matter, and the numbers of people, would keep it pretty informal, as you can tell. And for the next half hour or so, we'll have a general chat about some issues that I think might be relevant to you at this time. So hopefully we can offer some positive ideas and initiatives to help all of our tourism businesses stay afloat during these troubled times, and hopefully plan ahead for the future on the other side, as ScoMo says, whenever that might be, hopefully sooner rather than later. So Kathy will field any questions throughout our chat, and I'm happy to take those as we go.
I'll just quickly jump in, sorry, Ben, and welcome Marianne Kennedy. You've just come on the back end there, Marianne. Welcome to our call. Marianne, just for Ben and the rest of our members, we just did a bit of a quick whip around before, but could you just inform Ben where you're from and your business in your region?
Yes, my business is called A Taste of South Australia, and I've been doing tours now for 30 years, particularly to do with food and wine. So pretty much all international. So I've got small groups and walks and things around the city, but like Barossa, Clare, McLaren Vale, all those areas. And yeah, 30 years on, but it's almost zero because I deal mainly with international. So I've had to rethink a lot of things. So I'm keen to hear what you have to say.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for joining us, Marianne. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you could just press the mute function, feel free to table any questions through the chat function to Ben, and I'll handball it straight back to you.
No worries at all. So yeah, we have quite a mixed bag of people with us today, which is great. Most of you seem to be currently operating a licensed business. Some maybe not, Campbelltown Council, for example, but I'll try and keep it reasonably general, so it will be of some relevance to most of you for most of my topics anyway. So by way of background, as you're probably aware, late last year saw some dramatic changes to the liquor licensing regime in South Australia, with every liquor licence in the state changing its name and conditions. So that was November last year, and towards the end of last year and the start of this year, I think it's fair to say that most licensees, let alone lawyers, were still getting used to the new conditions and how these new licenses were going to work. I did help quite a few people vary their licenses and make the most of the opportunities in that sort of interim period to secure some more generous trading rights in liquor. And that's still a possibility, and I'll touch on that today as well. So just as we're getting used to the new liquor licence regime and the new trading rights and obligations, along came this bloody COVID-19 to knock us all sideways. So that's put a lot of these considerations on hold. So about a month ago, I think, in fact, a month and a day, 23 March it was, when the SA authorities issued the first of the directions that most on-premise businesses selling food and beverage had to cease trading almost overnight. And that really knocked a lot of businesses sideways as part of these new social distancing measures. So unfortunately, as a result of that direction, a lot of businesses closed virtually overnight. Also, unfortunately, I think there's been a bit of miscommunication as to some of those directions and what they actually mean, even by police at a very senior level. So there has been a bit of uncertainty as to whether all cellar doors, for example, had to shut, what that meant, whether they could still sell for delivery, pick up, food, beverage, whatever. So that wasn't ideal, but I guess things moved pretty quickly as a result of those directives. So hopefully with the latest direction, number 4, I think it is, from the state coordinator, I think those directions have now become a bit clearer as to what we can and can't do in our various licensed businesses throughout the state. So in general terms, there is no longer any on-premise food or beverage service available on site. So takeaway trade is still permitted in certain circumstances, but restaurants, cafes, cellar doors, hotels can no longer sell food and beverage within their licensed premises. Takeaway, still okay, so bottle shops, hotel bottle shops and fingers crossed cellar doors can still sell takeaway for pickup or delivery if their licenses do allow for that. The other downside, I guess, for people like Yolumba and so forth, has been that any cellar door tastings and sampling of food and beverage have also been prohibited. So a dramatic change to how we all go about our business and our tourism offerings. So that's the bad news. Any good news? Well, yes. To help bars, restaurants, hotels and the like stay afloat, the Liquor and Gambling Commissioner at Consumer and Business Services has allowed those businesses to apply for what's called a short-term licence to allow takeaway liquor with takeaway meals in situations where it would not ordinarily be allowed. So the traditional cafe restaurant can't sell takeaway liquor under their restaurant licence. By applying for this short-term licence, a number of licensees at restaurants and bars and so forth have applied for this licence type and have been operating reasonably successfully, selling takeaway food with some takeaway wine. I think from memory the rules are no more than a couple of bottles of wine or perhaps a 6-pack of beer and 1 bottle of wine with takeaway meals. So not a full bottle shop, but certainly to cater for a dinner, a family dinner or so forth, with that takeaway meal. So the good news is that that's free of charge, no application fees whatsoever. And also, pleasingly, it's a pretty straightforward process. It's done online, free of charge, with a few clicks of the mouse if you know where to look. And that's been a reasonably effective way to at least keep restaurants, cafes, and other bar-type businesses afloat to sell takeaway liquor with takeaway food when otherwise they couldn't do that ordinarily. It's been picked up by a number of licensees, and I think pretty well received by the public, as the delivery of food and liquor has been a welcome addition to what people can do with their dining out experience, but doing it at home. So that's been one of the good initiatives by the state government. Another positive has been the announcement that the annual liquor licence fee payable for next financial year will be waived entirely for most licensed businesses. So for some, that's a saving of several $1,000s. The waiver will apply from the 1st of July for all on-premises bar-type licences, residential licences, motels, restaurant and catering licences, club licences, and liquor production and sales licences, which is the old producer's licence. So great news for those businesses for the next financial year, and that will be a save of, as I say, potentially several $1,000s for most of those businesses. Hotels are a bit different, and I think some of you have the general and hotel licence, which is a new version of the old hotel licence. What the Commissioner has said is that if you don't have a bottle shop, your fees for next financial year will be waived entirely. Great news. Again, it'll save potentially thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for some hotel businesses. If you do have a bottle shop, there will be a reduction in your licence fee, but not a waiver. I'm not entirely sure what the fee will be, but certainly it'll be a significant reduction from the usual licence fee payable for a general and hotel licence. The Commissioner said that within the last week or so, he was going to contact all holders of that general and hotel licence to advise of what the revised fee would be. I haven't heard the exact fee, but some of you might have received that communication in the last week or so. So hopefully it's hundreds of dollars rather than thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for the right to run your bottle shop. Now, quite a few pubs have, of course, had to close their bars and restaurants, so they've had to rely on the bottle shop trade to at least keep some cash flow for their business, and some are trading quite well. The freestanding bottle shop, the BWS Dan Murphy style, from what I read in the papers, are trading very, very well as people move towards takeaway liquor rather than having a drink at the bar or so forth. And I think someone said it was like it was a Christmas trading week throughout March and April. So whether that's sustained or not, I don't know. But certainly if you do hold a general and hotel licence, you might want to take advantage of that bottle shop trade, depending on where you are and how successful that trade might be. But it's an option for you to at least try and keep some cash flow coming through the tills. As to what a bottle shop is, that's a bit of a vexed question. The Commission has tried to identify and define it in pretty general terms. The good news is a bottle shop doesn't include over-the-counter sales. So the extra licence fee payable for a hotel with a very limited bottle shop selling over the counter hopefully should be zero, totally waived. It's only if you have a dedicated area or a drive-through that the extra licence fee should be payable for that bottle shop trade. But again, there might be some scope there to perhaps argue the toss with the Commissioner if you feel that you've been hit with a higher licence fee for a bottle shop, that you might not in fact have a traditional drive-through or large walk-in bottle shop as might be the case with some hotels. Just on licence fee, one issue that has not been addressed is a question of the refund of licence fees paid for this financial year. It does seem a little bit unfair for licensees to have paid that large fee in advance for the current financial year. Now, given that most licensees can't trade, at all as of March 23 or thereabouts, there seems to be a reasonable argument to say, well, I've paid my licence fee in advance for the privilege of trading in liquor. If that privilege has been taken away, I think there's a reasonable argument to ask the Commissioner to refund the annual fee that's been paid in advance. And I know that a number of licensees have made that request of the Commissioner. He's got the power to do so. Whether he chooses to do that on request remains to be seen. I guess the other wild card is that potentially bars, cafes, hotels might be able to reopen before 30 June. Fingers crossed they do. But if they don't, I think there's a fair argument to say that those licence fees should be repaid. And for some of you, that could run to several thousands of dollars. So it's something to have a think about. And I expect there might be some publicity about that in the coming weeks if there are any licensees who have applied for that refund. But if it's been refused, then there might be some media publicity about that in the weeks to come. Of course, any refund would have to be prorated for the time that the licensees could trade. But given that for most of, for most licensees, April, May, June are likely to be periods of no trade in liquor whatsoever. So about a quarter of the annual licence fee could well be up for discussion for a refund. Certainly it's great news that the government has announced a waiver for most licensees for next financial year. As for this financial year, who knows, but it's certainly a topic for discussion in the weeks to come. The other thing to consider doing in the current climate is to ask the Commissioner to free up your licence conditions to allow for more generous trade, either for a short-term period or longer term. For example, we've helped out some licensees who have a cellar door type licence to sell a wider range of liquor, not just their own, perhaps for delivery purposes. Now, the Commissioner has been quite receptive to that idea and has allowed producers to sell a wider range of liquor, not just their own, for delivery purposes. So it might not appeal to perhaps the Yalumba type of operator, but for a smaller cellar door operation who wants to sell a wider range of local product, perhaps, maybe from their fellow producers down the road in their wine region who may not have a cellar door, that's certainly an option to consider, and one that the Commissioner seems to be quite receptive to so far at least. Certainly online sales seem to have been one of the shining lights for the liquor industry in the last month or two. So it's something to consider as part of a strategy to stay afloat for the time being at least. The other option is to look to vary your liquor licence conditions on a more permanent basis, not just for the current restricted period, but also moving forward for once these restrictions come to an end. As part of the transition process I talked about from late last year, a lot of conditions were imposed on licences almost in a blanket sort of a way, without too much consideration being given to the specific trading rights or business models of the individual licensees. The good news is the Commissioner has 2 years under the Liquor Act within which he can review those conditions at the request of a licensee. So there is scope to ask the Commissioner for more generous trading rights, not just for the short term, but also longer term. And we've helped out a number of licensees do just that, so that they can perhaps sell their own liquor to consume on site rather than just take away, or have a limited tasting perhaps, or to sell a wider range of liquor for delivery purposes by direct sales, or perhaps to sell other people's product with a meal at their cellar door for those who provide food as well. So there are a number of considerations there that, in particular, cellar door liquor production and sales licensees might look to implement, not just short term, but also longer term. As an example of that, you might know the Pirate Life operation at Port Adelaide. They held a special circumstances licence under the old Act. That transitioned to a general and hotel licence in November late last year. But the conditions of that general and hotel licence weren't as generous as the traditional hotel licence that you might have in Inaminka or wherever you might be with a traditional hotel. So the Pirate Life people applied to the Commissioner to free up what they could sell on site at their bar. As part of their transition licence, all they could sell for on-premise consumption at their bar was their own product. So they applied to the Commissioner to sell a complete range of product in the same way that a traditional hotel front bar could do. And perhaps surprisingly, the Commissioner did allow that application, and he granted that right to Pirate Life to sell any sort of liquor at their bar. So they are now becoming more of a public bar, selling a complete range of beer, wine and spirits potentially, rather than just their own product that you might expect at a more traditional cellar door, brewery door sort of setup. So for some people who had a special circumstances licence under the old Act, who inherited a general and hotel licence under the new Act with limited conditions, there does seem to be some scope to really broaden out those trading rights so that you could run a more general public bar rather than a very limited niche offering of your own products. In that case, Pirate Life also applied to sell takeaway liquor of any type, but curiously, the Commissioner said no to that application. So takeaway liquor for Pirate Life is still limited to their own product, but on premise at their bar, at that new facility down at Port Adelaide, in theory, they can sell any sort of beer, wine or spirits they choose to, not just their own product. So I guess the lesson is that if you do have a restricted licence, there is scope to apply to broaden those conditions, say not just for the short term, but looking forward to the days when we can invite customers back to our sites. That might be something worth thinking about, especially for those who have inherited perhaps that general and hotel licence with more restricted conditions than might otherwise be the case for a traditional bar. So it's worth, I think, at this stage of perhaps when you've got some spare time, to look at your current liquor licence, have a think about it, and perhaps make an application to the Commissioner to free up those conditions within the confines of what that Act can allow for. Applications do take several weeks, maybe a couple of months to process. So during this downtime, it might be a good time to review those conditions and perhaps apply to free those conditions up. Now, yeah.
Ben,
Kathy.
just a question, and it might be applicable to some members listening as well. So if someone was to make an application or contact the Commissioner to seek some leniency on a licence, what would be the best recommended approach to engage the support of Wallmans, or can it generally be handled by an operator by themselves, and are there specific forms perhaps they need to go onto the website for?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. Certainly the Commissioner tries to make things as user-friendly as he can. The restaurant cafe applying to sell takeaway with their food, with their meals, if you know where to look, it's a pretty simple application, and I would say you can do it yourself. It costs nothing in application fees. You can avoid legal fees as well. Yeah. For a more expansive application to change licence conditions permanently, that's probably something that you should take some advice on. You could try to speak to the Commissioner's staff, but a lot of their staff are working from home. The general switchboard number is hard to get through at the moment. So a bit like a lot of businesses, they're hard to track down and hard to get a straight answer from, I must confess. But by all means, you can give it a go yourself online. But what I would say is that if you hit any snags, we've got our free 15-minute phone call service for TIC SA members. So by all means, give it a go yourself. If you hit a snag, give me a ring and I can talk you through the process. And if you need to engage me or my colleagues more formally, we can do that if we need to. But yeah, just be very careful with the permanent applications. That does attract application fees, advertising, possible objection. So it's a more involved process, and I'll be reluctant to suggest people do it without first taking some advice as to what the options might be to get the most bang for your buck, if you like.
Oh, thanks for that, Ben. And like Ben said, I'll flick everybody an email on conclusion of this with TIC SA's general, with Wallmans' generous offer to all TIC SA members on that complimentary advice line.
Yeah, so they're the sort of the key issues from a liquor licence conditions, licence fee, and emergency directive point of view that I wanted to touch on today, there are other matters beyond my personal expertise, such as the JobKeeper program, payroll tax concessions, landlord-tenant issues that I expect will be very significant for a lot of your businesses. You may well have taken advice on those already. Certainly my colleagues have advised plenty of clients on those issues. So if you've got those more general questions about those wider issues, I couldn't help you personally, but I can put you in touch with my colleagues if we need to.
Thanks, Ben. Does anybody have any questions and they'd like to, because the great thing about these calls is, you know, we love organic conversations. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Ben? Feel free to pop them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or just unmute, because we're a nice little manageable group today. Fabulous. Is that, Marianne, have you got your hand up? If I can see that or not? No, sorry, I just half your arm in the screen. That's okay. Does anybody have any questions? No, that's all right. Ben has gone into lots.
Sorry.
Yep.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Anyway, sorry, I did send it to the group chat, but I just want back, as Ben was saying before, a month ago, you know, all pubs were shut, closed, and I remember AHA sent out a update saying that there was going to be clarification on outback or remote pubs being a main hub area, and that's never been clarified. No one's ever got back to us on that. As you know, in Aminka, I have a lot of essential workers, and I've had some since February. So, you know, within 24 hours, I've locked the door, said, sorry guys, got to serve you from the door. You know, and all they want to do is come in, as you know, at the end of the day, sit down, have a feed, have a few beers. They don't want to be stuck in their room. So, yeah, just wanting to know, you know, it's never been clarified why. And is there anything I can do about getting that sorted?
And are these workers residing with you?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. They have been since February. Same blokes since February. And I mean, when it all happened, you know, I rearranged the dining room. We had our 150 metre rule, changed chairs, did everything that we had to do by government. And then, yeah, so, you know,
and it's interesting
just
because
it's nicer for us as well, because we're, you know, I've got 5-6 staff here ready for the tourist season to start, and then, you know, bam, can't do anything, can't send the staff away.
Absolutely.
So, you know, for mental health for all of us, we can't even communicate with these guys.
Yeah, I think I've heard nothing about any exemptions for outback hubs or things like that, I'm afraid. But I take it you're still operating your accommodation side of things in Aminka?
Yes, yeah, I am for these workers. For tourists and all that, no, I won't. Obviously, we've now got our borders closed. Queensland have put gates on all our borders, so we're pretty much locked in and locked out as such. Santos put a stop to their workers coming into our small towns just in case one of them was carrying the virus. But I still have these essential workers which are going to continue for the next 3 or 4 months. So, I mean, I guess we are a bit luckier than some. I've still got people coming through the doors. But, you know, even the workers have said it's not the same sitting in their room having a beer. They want to be at the bar having a beer.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that there is that exemption, as I think you're probably aware that accommodation can be still provided to workers or guests, house guests, and room service can still be provided, food and liquor. But you're right, you can't have that traditional dining room setup or bar setup. So it is still very limited. I guess the guiding principle, I think, is still that social distancing measure. But I think the message from the Prime Minister has been that there does appear to be some move towards relaxation of those limits, perhaps middle of next month. So hopefully we can all start getting back to some level of interaction in licensed premises, whether it's 1 per 4 square metres, who knows. But certainly I agree that all you can do at the moment is accommodation, room service, food and liquor, and takeaway food and liquor to the general public from your hotel.
And what I'll do, I don't know if you're aware that Sean sits on the Premier's Industry and Response Council, and Sean meets on that council every week. Which is hosted by the Premier. So what I'll do is I'll bring because it is a unique situation, because technically you have got people residing, that's their primary place of residence at the moment. So I will share this with Sean as well and see if he can raise it and get a bit more clarity for you.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great, Kathy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ben.
Any more questions from you guys out there? No.
Yeah, Kathy and Ben, sorry, it's Michelle here.
Hi, Michelle, how are you going?
Good, thank you. I just had a bit of a question. So we currently don't have any liquor licenses on the premises at all. We're more so, I linked in today to sort of get a bit of a better understanding on when we can reopen our doors, how we can be value adding for our guests that stay with us. And it's a conversation that's regularly had with quite a few station stay operators up in this area. So there's 3 or 4 main areas that I guess we're trying to have a better understanding on what license is required. More so, I guess the first one is if you provide liquor within your accommodation, which is self-contained accommodation. My understanding is that you do not, if provided it is part of their stay, so if they're paying for the accommodation, not paying for the liquor separately, I understand that is acceptable without a license. So that's probably my first question, is that correct, or is there a license required for that?
Yeah, there are exemptions from the requirement to have a license for small-scale B&B style operations. There is a number of people where that exemption cuts out. It's double figures, but I think from memory it's around about 15 or so. But I'd need to check that. We can perhaps do that offline if we need to. So there are exemptions. It must be a limited stock of liquor, and also there are restrictions to where the liquor can come from. So there are exemptions for small-scale B&B operators. Once you get beyond a certain size, you do need a license, and there's a thing called a residential license, which most motels, B&Bs have, and it's reasonably straightforward to get with a bit of red tape. But yeah, there are exemptions, but don't assume it's a blanket exemption for not charging, because the Liquor Act takes a very broad view as to what a sale of liquor is. Even if you give it away as part of a business transaction, it's still deemed to be a sale. So just be a bit careful about that exemption. But yeah, perhaps give me a call next week and I can have a chat to you one-on-one about that. And I can talk with you those exemptions in detail if you need to.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, because I think the other one as well is just understanding, so of course, same type of thing, if we were to include it in a tour, whether that be a sunset tour, a full day tour, anything like that, where we're providing liquor as part of that package. But the other one as well is a lot of us do offer, between our accommodation and our camping, if we were, so obviously we get quite a few that we recommend, you know, the ideal hill for the sunset destination, to have that little bit of a, you know, extra value add by offering a package of, you know, wine and maybe a couple of glasses or something, and then a little platter to go with it. What sort of liquor licensing is needed to be able to offer that to our campers, to our accommodation, any of that for purchase on top of what they're already having?
Yep, understand. Common issue. Unfortunately, there is no neat solution to that situation. As most of us here today would appreciate, a liquor license applies to certain defined premises within a red line on a plan. Once you start taking guests outside of your accommodation area and up to the lookout on the hill, for example, it gets a bit hard to license that space. But there are ways and means around that with a bit of creativity. But ideally, what you would do is to fall under the exemptions that we just talked about for your accommodation business, and you'd provide it in somebody's room. If they then took it themselves off to the lookout, then that's their business. But what you can't do is, for example, sell a tour package for a boat cruise or something like that, and then say, well, we're giving you a free glass or bottle of wine as part of that tour. In the eyes of the Liquor Act, it's deemed to be a sale of liquor in that case. So you've got to structure it so that you are not selling the liquor off the licensed premises, but with a bit of careful, fancy footwork, there will be a solution for those situations as well.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Did anybody else have any questions they just wanted to have a chat with Ben about while we've got the opportunity? No? Oh, good. Fabulous. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to you guys and Ben for spending your Friday afternoon with us. I've certainly learnt a bit through today's topic, and I'm sure you guys will have some takeaways as well. As we mentioned, if you want to further connect with Ben or any of his colleagues in an offline matter, I will flick you an email at the end of this session, which will give you all the details and call to action. They provide a generous advice line complimentary for TIC SA members. For any of you, we're hosting these on a regular basis, these social distancing happy hours, with the aim to continue to be able to connect with our members and deliver you topics and information of relevance. So if any of you guys have got any feedback or some topics that you would like to table to us to bring to you in the future, please don't hesitate to drop me an email or give me a call at any time. As for this now, next week, we have actually got Brent Hill, Executive Director of Marketing from the Tourism Commission, joining us to talk about tourism recovery. And it's about the recovery of our industry, particularly when the restrictions lift. So keep across the channels and your emails with a formal registration on Monday. But otherwise that, in the meantime, cheers, happy Friday, and thanks to you all for joining us today. Cheers.
Thanks very much.